It's me, it's GSM, and welcome back, hashtag AskGSM here today. Lots of great questions. I'm going to be answering every single one of your questions you sent in this week from YouTube, from Facebook, and Twitter. I answer every single one of your questions because it's the best time of the week. You guys send in the best questions out there, and if you want to send in a question, you can find me on Facebook, Graham Jason Matthews. Don't forget about the Twitter, at WrestleRant, or even as easy as leaving a comment on this very video, and I'll be sure to include it in next week's edition. We are only less than a month away, 27 days, count it, 1 through 27, baby, days until WrestleMania 31. It's going to be a hell of a show. I'm very much looking forward to it. You guys have a lot of questions regarding the card, regarding to tonight's Raw, regarding last week's Fastlane pay-per-view, and everything else in between. So let's start right now. Jose K from YouTube. Who will be the best up-and-coming star that will not get a match at WrestleMania? Luke Harper, Ryback, etc. Well, Ryback, I don't know if you sent in this question before Raw last week, maybe after the pay-per-view. I'm not really sure when you sent in this question, but Ryback is on the card as of right now. Not in exactly the place where I would like him to be, but I'll take what I can get. Ryback will be a part of the Memorial, well, now annual Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. He'll be among the 30 participants. Luke Harper has yet to be announced for anything. I'm sure he'll be involved in that matchup as well. You cannot have 30 people in a Battle Royal and not have Luke Harper be a part of them. I want to talk about this later, but I feel like Luke Harper should be in the IC title ladder match. He and Ziggler had a hell of a ladder match at TLC a couple of months ago. And to not reward him for it and to put R-Truth in there instead makes absolutely no sense to me. So either way, I'm sure he's going to be on the WrestleMania card. And I was thinking about this the other day, in that, what about Bo Dallas? I went to a live event where I got this Brock Lesnar t-shirt, by the way. Back to break some more. The WWE World Heavyweight Champion, for now anyway, and I'll get back to that in a little bit. But that being said, though, I was at that WWE live event where Bo Dallas was in a match. Now, why Bo Dallas has yet to return, I have no idea. I'm sure he's been ready to return now for at least 2 months, and they have yet to bring him back. From what I heard, he was supposed to be back in the Rumble about a little over a month ago, but they did not bring him back in that matchup. So I'm not sure when he's going to be back, but at this point, I don't know if they're going to have him return on Raw. He could be back on Raw tonight for all I know. But they could have him return from now until WrestleMania to be in that Battle Royal. But I feel like with Bad News Bear, who was already on TV anyway, but I thought he should have been in that Battle Royal except for like fucking David Otunga, who I despise that is even still a wrestler. Granted, he isn't really anymore, which is fine. But the fact that he was in that Battle Royal and Bad News Bear wasn't was kind of just irritating to me. It worked out for the better because he returned to the ring the next night, but nevertheless, I feel like Bo Dallas is the guy that they might wait until, again, like with Bad News Bear, the night until after WrestleMania to have him return to the ring, instead of throwing him on Raw in the next couple of weeks, putting him in the Battle Royal where he's going to get eliminated anyway. I'm sure they don't have big plans for Bo Dallas. They never really did, unfortunately. I'm not a huge Bo Dallas fan, but they could have been doing more with him when they brought him up to the main roster. That said, though, I feel like he might be taken away. I have a feeling that he might not be on the WrestleMania card. We're going to have to wait and see. But I feel like of all the up-and-coming talent that you mentioned, I feel like he might be the one to not get a WrestleMania match. Time will tell, but I just have that weird feeling. His second question, this most likely will not happen. What if Bray Wyatt beats The Undertaker this year, WrestleMania 31, and maybe if Brock Lesnar comes back next year, Bray says, "What's so special about you? Since I beat The Undertaker too." Bray Wyatt has shown that he can just take punishment and brush it off, so it would be a great match. So he's pretty much proposing a Brock Lesnar versus Bray Wyatt match. Now, someone brought this to my attention not too long ago, in that, what if Bray Wyatt was to beat The Undertaker this year, and it gives him a huge rub. But that being said, though, does it diminish Brock Lesnar's victory? Because I know Brock Lesnar was the first one to hand The Undertaker a loss at WrestleMania, but now Bray Wyatt is not only solidifying himself better than all the other people that Undertaker has beaten in the past at WrestleMania, he's also putting him on the same level as Brock Lesnar, saying, if you could beat him, I could beat him too. Now, a Brock Lesnar versus Bray Wyatt match, it would be interesting, I'll say that much. And it's something new, it's something fresh, we have never seen it before. That said, it's not like the first dream match that I would have if Brock Lesnar was to stick around, which I still don't think he is. I feel like I still have that feeling that he's leaving the UFC, which is not, out of the ordinary. I mean, everyone's been predicting that forever now. But I feel like he is UFC bound once his WWE contract expires. So that said, If he was to resign for maybe another year, another few years, if he was to stick around, my first match to do with Brock Lesnar would not be with Bray Wyatt. I would probably put matches with Daniel Bryan above him, Dolph Ziggler maybe. I know it's not, as... I feel like Bray Wyatt, of course, like you mentioned, is a bit of it more on the level of Brock Lesnar than a Dolph Ziggler is. I mean, Dolph Ziggler's been so diminished. I mean, he gets pushed. He's not pushed, whatever. But Bray Wyatt is at least a quote unquote big guy, and you can do a match where it's realistic that he could be on his level and won't get completely demolished. But so it would be interesting from that aspect. But like I said, I feel like there's other dream matches to be had with Brock Lesnar in WWE. Bray Wyatt is not at the top of that list, but it would be interesting though if we had that next year at WrestleMania and it played out the way that you proposed it would be. I would be all for that. I think it'd be pretty cool. Other matches I would do, I mean, like I said, with Daniel Bryan and a few others, but if we did get that instead, it would be very cool because his story, as you mentioned, is there. Pig Window from YouTube, their question was, or just one question this week. Personally, I am not a fan of Tyler Breeze's current gimmick, as I feel that it could be very limited on the main roster. When he eventually gets called up, do you think that he would have more success if he changed his gimmick? Good question. I've talked about this here before, and I think Tyler Breeze has a lot of potential. He's very, very good. He's a great in-ring athlete. He's a great wrestler. But his gimmick, although it's been entertaining down in NXT for the last 2 years, I feel like you said, they're just going to make an undercard act on the main roster. There is the chance that it becomes something more than that. But that's what the main roster. I mean, like with Adam Rose, maybe not so much Adam Rose, but especially with Bo Dallas, these guys could be bigger on the main roster. It's just a matter of how WWE pushes them. And I feel like with Tyler Breeze, he's going to be a victim of, much like all these other guys, of bad booking. So I would bring him up with that current gimmick, but like every other character in wrestling, you have to evolve. So maybe he kind of tones it down a little bit. And in the last couple of months, he's become more aggressive, which is cool. He's still doing like the selfie stick and stuff like that, which is awesome because I think it's extremely entertaining. But if he starts to focus a little bit more on his aggressiveness, his aggressive side, and becoming a little bit more dominant in the ring, that would be great too because I think it kind of takes the emphasis off the goofy gimmick, like, Shawn Michaels circa 1992 or something like that. He's not the next Shawn Michaels. I want him to be the next first Tyler Breeze, So that said, I do, when it comes up to the main roster, I don't know if he would completely change his gimmick, but definitely adapt it to make it a little bit more serious, where he could be something of a mid-carder. I don't ever see him in WWE becoming like a world champion or anything like that, but I think he could be a solid mid-carder if they were to push him properly. If he keeps up with the, look at me, I'm so pretty, the Prince Pretty thing, the gorgeous stuff, I don't think it's going to be anything more than just an undercard act like an Adam Rose or Xavier Woods or a Bo Dallas or whatever. I think he's more than that because I think he's a better wrestler than all those guys that I just mentioned. But hopefully they can tweak it a little bit. Not completely change it, but tweak it a little bit when he gets to the main roster. Stephen J., he's got 2 questions from Facebook. First one being, is Undertaker up to a high-profile match? Why is WWE trying to get last miles out of Sting and Undertaker when they have awesome talent they are not utilizing, who are not broken and old? What are your thoughts on this? So with The Undertaker, I talked about this in a blog, in an article on Pro Wrestling Shirts. If you want to go out and check it out, cheap plug. And that Undertaker's final match should have been at WrestleMania 28 when he beat Triple H, went 20-0. It's the perfect way to end it. And the match was great too. That would have been a brilliant way to close off his career. Unfortunately, WWE opted to bring him back. And it's not really their fault per se. Undertaker still feels he has something left in the tank, which is fine. His match with CM Punk at WrestleMania was great. I just felt it was unnecessary. It didn't do anything for Punk. Undertaker was gone a couple weeks later anyway. He wrestled like a match or 2 on SmackDown and Raw, and that was it. But the feud wasn't even that good. The match with Brock Lesnar sucked. The feud with Brock Lesnar sucked. And now, going into WrestleMania, I feel like the Bray Wyatt stuff has potential, but if rumors are to be believed, he might not even show up until WrestleMania. So if that's the case, we're never going to get the interaction between Bray and Taker until WrestleMania, and the biggest issue with that is that we're never going to have them have those back and forth promos and whatever on the road to WrestleMania, because if Taker isn't here, then you can't do that. Maybe they will do that. I have no idea. We'll have to wait and see. But I feel like, because you're not going to continue the feud after WrestleMania, Taker's going to be gone. So with Undertaker, I feel like they're going to have him do this match this year, and do the match with Sting, because that's the real money match they might save up for WrestleMania next year. So that's, why do they keep him around? For the buy rates, the money. They're two top names. With Sting, I can see where you're going with Undertaker. With Sting, he's never wrestled a WWE match before. That's where the money lies. It's not like they keep on bringing him in year after year like The Undertaker. This is his first WWE match. So I can understand why he's in a high-profile match at WrestleMania with Triple H, because it's his first match in WWE, and he's likely building to a match with The Undertaker next year, or so I can hope. That's what I want anyway. I know the match would suck. I've talked about this before, but I feel like they need to do that match. You have both guys in the same show, but they're not going to be wrestling each other. I mean, that's the money match, and I'm hoping they save it for next year where both just retire, whatever. But still, though, I feel like you can also do Sting and Undertaker next year and whatever. But to get back to your point, Undertaker, they should have just had him hanging up years ago, in my opinion. The feuds with Brock Lesnar and CM Punk and now Bray Wyatt just feel unnecessary, and I feel like he's going to beat Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania, so it's not going to do anything for Bray Wyatt. Maybe give him a nice little rub and defeat, but like we saw with CM Punk, what was really the point? He lost to WrestleMania, and then he left. Like CM Punk, in his storyline, he walked out, and then he walked out for legit like a year later, you know what I mean, though, for real. That said, though, I don't know what it's going to do for Bray Wyatt. I mean, only time will tell. I can't really predict whether it's going to hinder Bray Wyatt. Is it going to hurt him? Is it going to help him? We got to wait and see. But I can see where you're getting at with Undertaker. Just with Sting, it's his first WWE match, so I understand why they're putting him in a high-profile spot at WrestleMania this year. Steven's next question was, what the hell was with Cody Rhodes and Goldust? That was a WrestleMania match for sure, and then the ref botched it, or did he? And he asked this last Monday. It did not make the deadline for the questions for last week's video, and this was coming off their Fastlane pay-per-view match. I know I'm in the minority here. I thought the match was good. I'm enjoying the feud. I'm definitely in the minority here because I know a lot of people are pooping all over it, but I do agree that the finish to their match at Fastlane was horrendous. And it's not even their fault. The ref botched it. He didn't even count to 3. He just count 1, 2, ring the bell. Like he never even hit the mat for the 3rd time, which was really weird. And the commentators were confused, and the people didn't know what to think. It's been really rushed. They should not have even had that match to begin with, because I feel like their first match should have meant more. Like, I'm happy we got the match at all, and I was able to see them work together this past weekend at the live event in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and they had a really good match on that show. That was where the finish was not botched. But no, I'm just gonna take what I get in that I'm glad we're actually getting this feud, and that they're not just brushing it off and whatever. Because I've been waiting to get this feud forever, since at least 2011 or 2012. So for years I've been waiting for this matchup, and I'm glad we're getting it. Not in the way that I would like it to be, because the way the booking has been really odd, with Stardust tapping out too quickly to Jack Swagger and Raw, and him losing that match, and then this match at Fastlane. I see where they're going with this story, where that Goldust wants to break Stardust's spirit and kind of turn him back into Cody Rhodes. I get that. I understand the story, but their first match should not have been rushed. Because like you said, like Steven said, it's a WrestleMania match. They should have just built it up more. Because they broke up on Monday, had a match on Sunday. It felt way too rushed. So I'm hoping that they can kind of resurrect this storyline going into WrestleMania. They can have a really nice match at WrestleMania between Cody Rhodes and Goldust. And yes, Cody Rhodes. The Stardust thing is fine, but I'm not even going to express my thoughts on Stardust. I've talked about it here before, and that I feel like his potential is with Cody Rhodes and not Stardust. He's very dedicated to the role, and he does a great job with it, but the gimmick has got to go. And I'm hoping that their match at WrestleMania will be with Cody Rhodes, and I'm hoping he kind of turns back into that persona before WrestleMania. And then the match against Goldust. I want it to be Cody versus Goldust, not Stardust versus Goldust. Or even if he turns back into Goldust at WrestleMania, I'm fine with that too. As long as he goes back to being Cody Rhodes, that's all I'm content with. Andre's question is first of 3 here. Do you think Curtis Axel should be repackaged and have Cameron as a manager? No. I am not a Cameron fan. I have stressed that in the past. It would probably keep her out of the ring. That's something. But Cameron and Curtis Axel really have no chemistry, so I don't really know where you got that from. Maybe there was a backstage segment that I missed on like SmackDown or the app or something. Cameron and Curtis Axel don't really even go together. And you can't even really repackage Curtis Axel because he already is a repackaged version of himself. He was already Michael McGillicuddy back in NXT, and I thought he had a lot of potential as Curtis Axel. Maybe not world champion, but they really could have done more with him coming out of 2013 and the pairing with Paul Heyman, which bombed. And I still credit his constant losses to CM Punk. Who I don't blame CM Punk. Even Punk said he didn't like doing that. He felt like beating Axel every week was dumb, and it was all the creative's decision, whatever. But, yeah, still, I mean, Curtis Axel at this point is damaged goods. I don't know what else you could do with him. I mean, the Axelmania stuff is entertaining. I think that's kind of where he belongs on the card, like the lower mid-card maybe, because people just aren't into him. He's very boring on the mic. He's getting better. He's improved. The promos he's been cutting in recent weeks are better than anything he's ever done in his career before now. But, still, the repackaging him again would really do him no purpose. I mean, we already repackaged him. He's damaged goods at this point. He was damaged goods as Michael McGillicuddy. They try to make people care about him, but it was too little too late. But still, though, I feel like the Cameron Curtis Axel dynamic doesn't really work. I mean, it's a little random. Curtis Axel could benefit from having a manager, but with Paul Heyman, it's really up to the booking. There's all the potential in the world, but it's really up to WWE to capitalize on that and give us what we want and have him speak for Axel, not make him lose every week as Intercontinental Champion, whatever. But, yeah, those are my thoughts on the proposed relationship between Curtis Axel and Cameron as a manager and client-like relationship. But his second question was, who do you think Hideo Itami should feud with since he is about to wrap up his feud with Tyler Breeze? Good question. We got a lot of great talent right now in NXT. I'm loving NXT right now. When am I not? I mean, NXT is always awesome. But they got a lot of good heels right now. I think Solomon Crow is supposed to be a heel. I'm not really sure. But if he is a heel, I would do that. Solomon Crow versus Hideo Itami. I think that could be a great feud. We could have some really, really good matches. Who else? I think Kevin Owens at some point, that would be a nice feud. But Kevin Owens right now is in the NXT title picture, and Hideo Itami's not close to that right now. So I would probably wait on that for a while. There's that feud you could do. Bull Dempsey, he already beat in like 4 minutes last week, so that's not an option. I'm trying to think of other heels we have right now in NXT that he could feud with. Tyler Breeze. Maybe one of the up-and-coming guys like Brian Kendrick or something. That'd be pretty cool. If he's around for the long haul, and I'm not sure that he is. I don't know if he was at the recent NXT tapings. I know he was the night after TakeOver, those tapings. I don't know about the second set. Him and Rhino would have a good feud. I mean, either Rhino, Kendrick, Crow. Those would be nice feuds for Hideo Itami in the time being. What you do with Tyler Breeze, I have no idea. Maybe if Solomon Crow is a babyface, then you do that feud, Tyler Breeze versus Baron Corbin, maybe. There's a lot more babyfaces that he can work with, maybe Finn Balor. But with the heels, it's a little bit more limited, so I would probably do Itami and Rhino if he's a heel, I'm not really sure, or Kendrick or Crow. I think those are some viable options there. Next question. What direction do you see Daniel Bryan and Dolph Ziggler heading in after WrestleMania? So here's the problem with WWE right now. They book all this shit for WrestleMania. And like I said, WrestleMania has the potential, keyword potential, to be great. If it's not great, it's because they didn't book it properly. But if they book it properly, if they book it accordingly, it could be a great show. Excuse me. But if they book it, the way that I would like them to, it could be a very, 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 very good show. That said, after WrestleMania, they have no fucking clue what they're going to do with any of these guys. What are they going to do with John Cena? What are they going to do with Bray Wyatt? What are they going to do with all these other stars they have colliding at WrestleMania? They have no long-term plans. They only think short-term. So with Daniel Bryan and Dolph Ziggler, I mean, I'll get to them when I talk about the IC title match, but I feel like they're both going to be involved in the Intercontinental title match at WrestleMania. And I feel like Daniel Bryan should win. And like I said, other people asked about this, and I'll get to that in a few minutes. But I feel like Daniel Bryan as Intercontinental Champion could work. Dolph Ziggler, I really have no idea what you do with him. Maybe you put them in a feud after WrestleMania, but I don't want to turn either of them heel. Ziggler, I mean, he was something a couple months ago, and it's not his fault. They completely diminished him after coming out of Survivor Series. Got the biggest win of his career, and then after the Authority was brought back a month later, that win was null and void. So he was pretty much dead after that. He got fired the following week, and really hasn't been the same since. So I don't know what you do with Dolph Ziggler after WrestleMania. Maybe you put him in a feud with Bray Wyatt, because Bray Wyatt won't be feuding with The Undertaker, obviously. So that would be a fun feud to do coming out of WrestleMania. But yeah, Daniel Bryan maybe in the IC title picture. Dolph Ziggler, I really have no idea, to be quite honest with you. I don't even know what I would do with them. Like I said, maybe a feud with Bray Wyatt or Seth Rollins. I mean, we've seen that a million times, but their matches are always great, so I would not be completely opposed to it. But yeah, well, really have to wait and see. I really have no idea right now, because the card is really all kind of all over the place. Daniel Bryan was headlining Fastlane in a match with WWE World Heavyweight Championship implications, and now he's competing for the IC title at WrestleMania. So It's really all over the place. We're going to have to wait and see. But with Daniel Bryan, I feel like he's going to be involved in the IC title picture for a while. If he doesn't feud with Sheamus, that is. But we'll get to that in a few minutes. Cody C, I mean, this kind of goes in that, kind of going off of that. Also from Facebook, who do you think should be in the Intercontinental Championship ladder match at WrestleMania, and who do you think should win it? So my proposed lineup would be Wade Barrett, of course, Bad News Barrett, the current champion. Dean Ambrose, they still have that unfinished business. Dolph Ziggler also has unfinished business. He beat Barrett last week on Raw, and he has yet to get a rematch for the IC title since being rehired last month, or back in February. Daniel Bryan and Luke Harper. I know that's kind of like a wild card, but I would much rather would have Luke Harper in that match than R-Truth. R-Truth makes, I mean, this doesn't make completely no sense. I mean, he beat the champion a couple of weeks ago on SmackDown, but in that case, fucking throw Sin Cara in there and all the other people that have beaten Barrett over the last month and a half, because it really means nothing. So I don't want R-Truth in there. Why they even bother to put him in the title picture, it really makes no sense. He's not over. People do not care about R-Truth. He, again, is damaged goods. So there's really no point. If he was to turn heel, maybe then I would be a little bit more interested in R-Truth than it would be if he was going in as a babyface. But I don't feel like that's the case. So take out R-Truth, put in Luke Harper. If it's going to be a 5-man match, you could do 4 men with Barrett, Ambrose, Ziggler, and Bryan. But if it has to be 5 men or more, definitely put Harper in there. I feel like he could do some cool things in the Battle Royal, but he'll be absolutely overshadowed. So putting him in that matchup with the Intercontinental Championship on the line, he too has history with Ziggler and with Ambrose and a few others. Daniel Bryan, of course, as well. So I feel like those guys could have a kick-ass match for the title of WrestleMania. So that would be my lineup. Who would win? I'd probably have to go, like, with Daniel Bryan, the thing is that you can't put him in a match like that that's below him and then have him lose. I mean, no one's getting pinned because it's a ladder match. But if you're going to put him in a match that's below him, like I feel like the IC title is here, Daniel Bryan's like above the screen, that you need to make him win. And then maybe at that point, you can have him make that championship mean something. I mean, this is all really in theory, because like I said, it's really all in the execution with WWE, not really in theory, because they could book, they could start a feud that has great potential, and by the time it ends, you really want it to end, because it's been a waste of time, like with AJ Lee or AJ and Paige last year. Like in theory, what an amazing feud, and then in execution, it was a piece of shit. So really, kind of going back to what I was saying before, Daniel Bryan as Intercontinental Champion would be interesting. I think that would be a great boost for the title, and it would give Daniel Bryan something to do. And I'll get to like why I think that could be a good idea in a few minutes. Someone else asked a question about that. But you can't put him in a match that's below him and like the opener and then have him lose. Like that makes no sense. The guy that came this close to headlining WrestleMania against Brock Lesnar, and then you have him lose an IC title match. Luke Harper, in my world, if he was in that match, would not need to win. Ambrose, I feel like, Bryan is here, and then Ziggler, Ambrose, and then Barrett's all the way down to the bottom. But Ambrose and Ziggler are here, and then Bryan's a little bit higher. I feel like Bryan would be better off with that championship. Because when Ziggler was champion, for the most part, he was also losing non-title matches against Rusev and Kane and Big Show, Luke Harper, all this other shitty, these shitty matches for no reason why he was losing. So I feel like if he was to win back that belt, he would go right back to doing what he was doing before, like Bad News Barrett, and just losing all the matches that he's involved in. Because that belt is a fucking curse. So unless they put it on someone that's over and higher up on the card, like with John Cena and the U.S. title, it's going to be doomed. Ambrose, going to be the same thing, I feel like. If they give him the championship, he will just be losing all the time, like he was a couple of months ago when he was shooting with Bray Wyatt. But, still, I feel like Daniel Bryan would be the best choice, and I'll get to you exactly why in a few minutes. Someone else asked a question about that. Paul S., he's got a couple questions here. His first one, does the Blake and Murphy duo remind you of the Rockers? And if WWE were to split them up soon, who do you think would have the much better singles career, have much more success? I'm sorry, the question's kind of phrased weirdly. Have much more success as a singles wrestler. So no, I don't think they really remind me of the Rockers personally. I mean, maybe to other people, but the Rockers had charisma. They were over. People loved them. I mean, it's too early to say with Blake and Murphy. They've been a tag team for a while, but they didn't really start to get pushed prominently until just recently when they won the tag team titles. So not really. I mean, you could see the charisma with the Rockers. Blake and Murphy are still struggling in that department. They're still trying to get over. Like they cut a heel promo a couple weeks ago in NXT, which wasn't bad, but they still have some time before they can be good, like really good. So I think they have potential. Again, keep on going back to that word. They have potential, but potential doesn't pay the groceries, as Jim Ross used to say. So yeah, I think they're a good tag team, but they are not the Rockers. They're not Rockers tier talent, in my opinion. Maybe in due time, but for right now, not really. But to answer the second part of your question, if they're going to be split up anytime soon, but I mean, like in theory, hopefully not. I mean, they just won the tag team title, so I'm hoping that they don't get split up anytime soon. But like with Ty Dillinger and Jason Jordan, I guess you never really know. But let's say if they were to be split up tomorrow, who would have more success as a singles guy? I still say that Buddy Murphy is great. I think he has a very good talent. I don't know if it's still up on YouTube, but if you look it up, Buddy Murphy promo or something like that, because he cut a promo in like one of their promo classes maybe a year or so ago. I think it was a while ago, and it was really dark. And he was like, "Oh, I'm not going to be your Australian cowboy. I'm going to be an ass kicking machine or whatever, something like that." And it was really, really, really good. And then I was disappointed they brought him in to NXT as a tag team guy, because I think he could be much more than that if they book him properly. Now that he's just known as Murphy, not Buddy Murphy, a lot of people thought, oh, that's a dumb name. He's never going to get anywhere with that name. But now that he's just Murphy, assumingly, I think they've officially changed it. I'm not sure. I think he can really go places in NXT if they were to push him accordingly. That said, though, there's a lot of big names right now in NXT. So he would kind of get lost in the shuffle, so probably the tag team thing is the best thing for now, which is why I say don't split them up anytime soon. But yeah, I think in the future, down the line, I think Murphy has a lot more potential, is much more capable of great things in WWE than Blake. I think Blake's good. I just really haven't seen enough of his work, and the only thing I'm going off with Murphy is the promo thing that I saw, a couple months ago or a year ago or so. It was a long time ago, but he was really, really good. Go out and check it out. Go, seek it out for yourself, because I think that was a fantastic promo, and it really shows that this guy can, work a microphone. So, yeah, I think Murphy will be the more successful of the two, but time will tell, I'm sure. His next question: Tyson Kidd has reinvented himself at NXT. Do you suppose that D.H. Smith would have done the same had he gotten the chance to go to NXT instead of being released? That's a really good question. I know I say that a lot, the old cliche, but I honestly do think that this is a really good question, because I think D.H. Smith, while I never really thought he was great, I always thought he had a lot of untapped talent. I mean, he was really, really good in that tag team with Tyson Kidd, but beyond that, they had no plans for the guy. Like, Tyson Kidd is lucky he's still around. Because I know he's been, he was an undercard guy for years before they finally started doing something with him just recently. But D.H. Smith never really got that opportunity. After they broke up, him and Kidd, he went to wrestle on Superstars and was never really on TV at all after that. And then he got cut in like the summer of 2011, so he didn't really last too long after that tag team disbanded. But he had talent, though. I mean, it was in his blood. He's the son of Davey Boy Smith. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like they could have done more with him, and if NXT was like what it was today, I mean, NXT at the time that he was released was a piece of shit. It was like NXT Redemption and all that, all that garbage. I don't want to really remind myself of that. I mean, I talked about it here in the video blog, cheap plug, a couple days ago here on the channel if you want to check it out. But, that was a complete train wreck. But if NXT was what it is today, if it was, if we had what we have today with NXT back then, I feel like he could have done some really cool things like Tyson Kidd and kind of reinvented himself. Like, for a time they gave him like a cowboy hat and all this stupid shit. Like, what are you doing with this guy? It was really random too. It was never really even explained. But yeah, I think D.H. Smith could have gotten the chance to do more in WWE had they given him the chance, because he was really good. But they never bothered to even, try with him after he broke up with Kidd. So, yeah, I think he could have probably reinvented himself. I don't know if he would have had the charisma. He never really seemed like the most charismatic guy to me. But he was a really good worker, and I feel like Tyson Kidd could have had a nice career for himself in the current form of NXT if it was around back then. His next question: some signs point to Brock Lesnar returning to the UFC after WrestleMania. If this is indeed the case, who will the WWE use as the next monster-like heel / anti-hero? So I've talked about this, at length in the past here on the show. I feel like I get asked this like once a week, but it's okay. I feel like I really don't know who's going to fill in that role as the next monster heel. There's really no one on the current roster that stands out to me as being the next Brock Lesnar, the next Big Show, Kane, whatever. Brock Lesnar and Big Show are on completely different levels here, but you know what I mean, like the next monster heel. Because Brodus Clay, I think, could have been that guy, but they got rid of him. I know the whole Funkasaurus thing kind of fucked him up for a while, but I think even before that, funked him up, no pun intended, whatever. But, even before that, I feel like before they did that whole, somebody call my mama bullshit, he could have been something if they pushed him as a top heel, but whatever, it's long gone now. So I don't know who's going to fill in that role, but you mentioned anti-hero, and I hear that word, and the first thing I think of is Randy Orton. The first person I think of is Randy Orton. He, back in 2010, was the epitome of what an anti-hero should be. He was so over with the crowd, but he wasn't your cookie-cutter babyface that he eventually ended up becoming in the years to come in 2012, 2013, because they never really did anything with him. 2010, he was a badass babyface in that he would take out Edge, he would take out Jericho, all the heels, but he would also RKO John Cena from time to time. He would RKO Wayne Brady from time to time, like all these random people. But he was really, really over. Like 2010, in my personal opinion, was the best year of Randy Orton's career. He was WWE champion for a while. 2009 was also a good year for Randy Orton as a heel, but as that anti-hero like babyface, he was awesome in 2010. And I wrote an article about this a couple of weeks ago on Bleacher Report, and that I feel like he can go back to that persona now that he's back, because he was showing shades of it before he got injured or, in storyline, whatever, last fall. And I think if he goes back to that persona, he can really thrive. So I don't know what they're doing with him right now with Seth Rollins bullshit and all that garbage, but I feel like he can really fill in that role as an anti-hero if they can push him that way like they did in 2010. I don't know if lightning strikes twice, but I think in that case it very well could, because I think he was so great in that role. On the mic, he didn't even do many promos from what I remember. He would just go out there, RKO the shit out of people, and then he would leave. That's what he did last fall, and that's what he's doing right now. And I feel like he's more motivated than he's ever been. Even before he left, he was like, on the mic and in the ring, it felt like he was more motivated than he had been in years. Even as the heel stuff that he was doing, he's a great heel, but he was booked so shitty during his run with the Authority that there was no salvaging that, so they had to turn him. But, I think Randy Orton could be the next anti-hero. I'm not even the next anti-hero, as the current anti-hero. Who in the future is going to fill in that role? I have really no idea. Maybe a Dean Ambrose is like a Stone Cold Steve Austin-like babyface. But, for the time being, though, Randy Orton, I think, fits that role to perfection. His next question, who would you select as the next Paul Heyman guy? Curtis, Axel, Ryback, and Cesaro are excluded. So, this is going off on a limb here. Well, first, I'll say the obvious answer, Roman Reigns. Because I think, although he's kind of getting over, they're kind of making up for all the bad babyface shit they've been kind of doing with him for the last couple of weeks. The bad building to their match at Fastlane between him and Daniel Bryan. They've really not ruined him as a babyface, but it's really on the edge with the 50-50 reactions and the in-ring work and the promos especially, but which I think have improved. But I feel like even if they do flip the switch at WrestleMania with him beating Brock Lesnar for the championship and then Paul Heyman sides with him, because if Brock Lesnar leaves, and I fully expect for that to happen, you need to keep Paul Heyman around in some form or fashion. Hopefully he won't leave, because I think Paul Heyman has been an integral part of WWE TV for the last 3 years since he came back alongside Brock Lesnar. So I think if you keep him around in a managerial role with a guy like Roman Reigns, who, Curtis Axel, Ryback, Cesaro, all had potential. I hate to keep on going back to that word, and I hate to keep on shoving it down your throat, but, they all had potential, especially Cesaro. But they ruined it by having him lose every single fucking match he was in. But, whatever. And again, what's done is done. You can't really change the past. But, looking into the future, though, Roman Reigns is the guy that's already at the main event level. But unlike a Dean Ambrose, who would also be a really good fit, or a Seth Rollins, the thing is with Roman Reigns is that he's not a good talker. And that with Paul Heyman in his corner as his mouthpiece, it would be the perfect fit. And as a heel, he wouldn't really need to rely as much on his in-ring work, because he could be the dominant heel, like we saw him in The Shield. For the first year and a half when they were a dominant heel faction, they really were, some badass trio and stuff like that, and Roman Reigns was great in that role because he wasn't really relied on much to do much in the ring. And as the heel, he can really, let the other guys do the talking for him, and then he does the dirty work in the ring. Like, that's the role that Roman Reigns should have. And he could be a great babyface. Only time will tell whether they can kind of salvage what they have left with him. But I feel like as a heel, he has he could be really, really good in that role. And I think Paul Heyman would be a great mouthpiece for him coming out of WrestleMania. And kind of going out on a limb here. And someone mentioned this, I think it was Mick Foley on his Facebook page. And I think this would be incredible. Now, this was a dream booking scenario. I do not expect this to happen or anything like that, and it won't happen because I think he's with Ring of Honor for the next couple of weeks. But Samoa Joe, the night after WrestleMania in a dream booking scenario, again, not realistic as Joe has since returned to Ring of Honor for the next at least few months. But the night after WrestleMania, Brock Lesnar's gone. Paul Heyman is looking for a new client, like we saw with Cesaro last year. And then out comes Samoa Joe, completely whips the ass of Roman Reigns or John Cena, whoever. And Samoa Joe is the next Paul Heyman guy. And I think that could be phenomenal. Because I think Joe, he's a good talker, but he is a lot better when he's silent, just a silent ass-kicking babyface. Or a heel even. It doesn't really matter. And with Paul Heyman in his corner, I think it could be phenomenal. So the night after WrestleMania is way too soon. It's not realistic, because like I said, can't happen now. But down the line, I think Samoa Joe, if they're going to bring him in, and I heard he got an offer from WWE, I'll believe it when I see it. I'm not going to say it's complete bullshit, it's not happening. There's a chance. But I'm not going to bank on it and be disappointed when they don't sign him, because I don't expect them to sign him. But it would be awesome, though. I talked about that last week. I think it would be incredible if they can get Samoa Joe in WWE. But that said, though, I feel like him as the next Paul Heyman guy would be amazing. No better way to bring him in than, people already know him for the most part. He was with TNA for 10 years. He's an established name. For the most part, most casual fans of WWE wouldn't know who he is. But they can get to know who he is by being paired with someone as noteworthy and as awesome as Paul Heyman. So I feel like that would be an amazing pairing. But even if Joe doesn't come in, I feel like Roman Reigns is the only one on the roster right now, or among the few that feels like would make for a great fit with Paul Heyman, with him bringing the in-ring work, kind of keeping it limited as a heel, and Paul Heyman kind of boasting him up on the mic and, kind of endorsing him on the mic and stuff like that. So I feel like that would be a really good fit coming out of WrestleMania. His next question here, finally, is it wise to hold a WWE Championship tournament instead if Brock Lesnar decided to vacate the title before WrestleMania with all the bad news that's been brewing from last week? So, I think John asked me this, at JohnKnapp17, follow him on the Twitter, cheap plug. I don't know if it was meant for the show or just a random question, I'm not really sure. He didn't put the hashtag in there, so I wasn't exactly sure. But what do you do with Brock Lesnar if he can't defend the championship at WrestleMania because he left Raw last week, he walked out of Raw for whatever reason, he had an argument with Vince McMahon, then he was seen at the UFC event this past weekend, kind of stirring controversy, kind of stirring some news as to whether he might be headed there after his WWE contract expires, which again, I expect that to happen. But that said, though, I feel like he's not going to skip out on WrestleMania. There's already been reports that he will be there at WrestleMania to defend his title. Nothing is set in stone. Kind of take anything you read on the internet with a grain of salt, of course. With a grain of salt, of course. But yeah, I feel like, because like with WrestleMania 20, it's not, he wanted to leave, but he fulfilled his contractual obligations. He wrestled the WrestleMania, he lost, and then he left. So, I feel like he will probably do the same thing this year. But if it came down to him leaving before WrestleMania, for whatever reason, and the off chance that he leaves before WrestleMania, what would you do with that championship matchup? So, in my mind, and John proposed that you do a Shield triple threat, but Dean Ambrose is nowhere near the main event right now, so it wouldn't make that much sense. For next year it would be if they build it up. But I feel like what they would do instead, Roman Reigns would still be in the main event regardless, and would probably still walk out as a champion, because I'm sure that's still the plan as of right now. Roman Reigns in the main event, Seth Rollins, they either have him cash in, or, they give him the championship, and you do Rollins versus Reigns, and then Randy Orton, who is also feuding with Seth Rollins right now, can be inserted into that matchup. The Authority can grant him a championship matchup, because he still has yet to get his championship rematch since last year at WrestleMania. So, I feel like that'd be a great way to kind of salvage what you have left. Again, it's a triple threat, and we had a triple threat last year, so, and it would make more sense in a Shield triple threat at this point in time, but would you want to do another triple threat for the second year in a row? That'd be really, that could be kind of weird. It's different. Randy Orton would still be involved, but it's not like with Daniel Bryan and Batista. And the dynamic is a little bit different, because Roman Reigns is the baby face, Orton's the anti-hero, and then Seth Rollins is the solidified heel. But again, hopefully it doesn't come down to that. That's what I would do. The tournament thing, I like tournaments, and I like that idea, but especially with WrestleMania so close, it's in a little less than a month, you would really have to fucking rush it. You would have to do matches half the tournament on Raw, in the last 2 weeks. Because Brock Lesnar isn't even supposed to be on Raw for the next, not tonight on Raw, but I think next week. So, you wouldn't really have much time to do it at all. And then who would you even put in the tournament? Because most people who would be in the tournament, you already know what's going to happen with them at WrestleMania, so you know what the outcomes of the matches are going to be. So it's a waste of time. So worst case scenario, I would just do a triple threat with Rollins, Reigns, and then Orton. And then maybe you could do the Shield triple threat next year or something. I don't really know, but that's what I would do. So next question here. Justin G, his set of questions this week, his first one being, do you feel as the WWE is waiting for John Cena to go part-time to see a big push in the performance of Cesaro? No. Especially not for Cesaro. I mean, they might be waiting, and I mean, I definitely see what you're getting at here, and I do agree. They might be waiting for John Cena to go part-time to push someone as the next guy of this company, like a Roman Reigns. But I still feel like they need to start now with pushing these people, like a Roman Reigns. Like they need to start building the next faces of their company right now. In the case, like say John Cena got in a car accident tomorrow, God forbid, and he could never wrestle again. Like what do you do in that case? Roman Reigns is already kind of getting towards that point where he could be the next guy, but he's nowhere near there yet. But he's the closest one out of anyone in the current roster. So, Cesaro, no. I mean, like, they're not doing anything with Cesaro because they're not going to wait for John Cena to go part-time in order to push Cesaro, because by that point, Cesaro is going to be like 50 years old, because I don't see John Cena going part-time for a long time. And maybe in the performance of some other guys, not specifically Cesaro, because Cesaro they just really have not done anything with for whatever reason. But I'm glad that he's in a tag team with Tyson Kidd. I think that's a great fit for him for right now. But, yeah, I mean, I feel like, unfortunately, they might be just waiting for John Cena to go part-time, which, again, might not be for a very long time, in order to say, okay, now we can start pushing this next guy. Like, I feel like they need to start now building up stars, and they really have done that to an extent with guys like Rollins and Reigns, and to an extent Ambrose, Bryan, kind of, Dolph Ziggler, kind of. But, yeah, so it's good they've started, but they really need to go full throttle with this thing and really need to start pushing the future faces of this company right now, in the case that if, God forbid anything happened to John Cena or whoever else at the top of the roster, they have someone to fill in that spot ASAP. His next question, with returning Bryan, Kendrick, and Rhino on NXT, do you see them returning to the main roster, or are they only there for matches with the younger generation? Yeah, I think they're only NXT exclusive, which is fine. I think on the main roster, I talked about this either last week or someplace else. But I feel like Rhino, and especially Kendrick, if they were to come back up with the main roster, they would be lost in the shuffle within weeks. They would absolutely be lost in the shuffle, which sucks because I'm a huge Kendrick fan. I like Rhino. When he came back, I was marking the hell out. I thought that was an awesome moment. But, yeah, they would not do anything with those guys if they were going to come up to the main roster. So I think working with the younger guys down in NXT, Rhino I know is there for a couple months. Kendrick, I don't know if his appearance was a one-off or if he's here to stay. I know he's on the NXT roster now on WWE.com. But I don't read spoilers either, so I don't know if he was at the most recent set of tapings in a televised match. I'm not really sure. Only time will tell. But, yeah, I think they're better off in NXT anyway, where they can get TV time. They can have great matches on Raw or SmackDown. What are they going to do? Come back for a 2-minute match against Bo Dallas or something? Like, it's a waste of time. So I think they're probably better off right now kind of working with the younger guys in NXT, which is why they should be there. I think Kendrick and Rhino had their time. They're not going to be pushed, of course. They're not going to be winning any championships. But the sole purpose why they're there is to work with the younger guys, put them over, give them a nice rub. And it's working greatly. I think both guys are over. They're both really good talents, both really good hands inside the ring. So I think it's a great idea to bring them back. You don't need to bring everyone back. Like next week it's Masters, and the other week it's Michelle McCool. Like WWE.com put out a list saying 10 people we should see right now back in NXT. Like, you don't need to do that every single week. But, once in a blue moon when you bring someone back, like a Rhino or a Kendrick, it would be really cool. So I feel like what they're doing right now, what they're doing right now with them down in NXT is the best thing for them. For both them, the younger guys, and pretty much everybody. His third question, being a fan of Tyson Kidd, I had the idea that someday Kidd and Daniel Bryan could have a hell of a match. What are your thoughts? Absolutely. I've been thinking about this for years now because I really initially wanted to see them work a program over the United States Championship. And this isn't random either because when Daniel Bryan was champion for like a solid 6 months or so, they did the feud with Miz in late 2010. And then I don't know if it was on an episode of Superstars. I mean, I know Superstars is irrelevant, but it was a little bit more relevant back then than it is now, obviously. But they had Daniel Bryan and Tyson Kidd on opposite teams and a tag team match in Superstars. And Kidd pinned him. And I'm thinking, awesome, Kidd gets a big win. This is right after Kidd, got separated from D.H. Smith. But awesome, he gets a big win. He can get inserted into the U.S. title picture. And it went nowhere. It might have been like the following week on Raw or whenever it was, where they had a match on Raw that was, I don't think, for the U.S. Championship. And Bryan beat him in like 2 minutes. And then neither of them got entrances either, which was even dumber. But yeah, I feel like Tyson Kidd and Daniel Bryan could have a hell of a match. I mean, Tyson Kidd is here right now, and Daniel Bryan is here. But even if it was like a one-off match, like you know how Miz worked, or I'm sorry, Bryan worked with Miz. You know, Miz is here, Bryan is here, but they still worked a match on SmackDown recently, which I thought was really good while it lasted. I mean, given their history and stuff, I wish I could have gotten more time. But that said, though, Bryan and Tyson Kidd, if they were going to have one of those one-off matches like a Bryan and Miz, they could have a hell of a match if given time. Again, don't have faith in WWE to do that. They can't even spare a minute or so for their Davis matches on Raw some weeks, which was disgraceful. But yeah, I mean, if given the time, I think Kidd and Bryan could have one hell of a match. And if they elevate Tyson Kidd into the mid card at some point when his tag team with Cesaro runs its course, then you could do that feud. Maybe. I think Daniel Bryan is upper mid carder for right now, if not main eventer once in the title picture later on this year. But I think a match or even a feud between those two would be epic. So I absolutely agree with you there. At Brad Bernard, he's got a couple questions. First one being, was WrestleMania 29 really as bad as most people believe it is? The thing with WrestleMania 29, and I have not been shy to share my thoughts on this in the past, and I think with 27, 29, 25, is that, especially 27 and 25, is that they had, again, I hate to say it, I'm sorry, I owe you like a beer every single time I say a potential, but they both those shows, 27 and 25, had potential. 29, I mean, there was a chance that it could be good. Like, I know going into the show, I just didn't really care for most of the matches. I was still excited like I am for every WrestleMania. But going into it, I'm thinking, there's a chance it could be booked right, on the off chance it could be booked right, but I'm expecting it to be meh. And 29 was just, I walked into it with no enthusiasm, and I walked out of it with no enthusiasm either. Because there was really, the only good match from that show, in my opinion, was Undertaker versus CM Punk. And some people will tell you that they didn't even enjoy that match. But I thought it was really good for what it was worth. My opinion, though. The rest of that card, I mean, look at the card that we had for that year. We had The Shield versus Orton, Sheamus, and Big Show. I mean, the match was okay, but The Shield deserved to be, I mean, after an incredible performance at TLC 2012 a couple months before that, they deserved a little bit more at WrestleMania, and it just felt like just a way to get Big Show, Orton, and Sheamus on the show. And then Big Show turned heel afterwards. Like, I don't give a fuck about this. Like, we had that match. John Cena and Rock was not good. It wasn't horrendous, but their 28 match was a lot better from a storytelling standpoint. And the 29 match just felt so unnecessary. And the constant reversals and not a good match. What else did we get that year? We had Taker and Punk, I already said. Del Rio and Swagger felt like a waste of time. Swagger didn't even get an entrance. I mean, not surprising because he had the DUI that year, but the match was okay, again, but a match I did not give two shits about going in, did not give two shits about when it happened. Ziggler didn't cash in that night. I was pissed about that, but he did cash in the next night on Raw, which is probably for the better in retrospect. And then we also had Triple H versus Brock Lesnar, who I thought, in my opinion, had a really good match. Not the best of their series. I thought the Extreme Rules match was really good too. Probably better than their WrestleMania or SummerSlam matches. But the WrestleMania match suffered from being right after Taker versus Punk. And that's probably why the crowd was so fucking dead for that match. And you knew Triple H was going to win, and it ruined Brock Lesnar's momentum. And I still feel like he should have won that match. I mean, I know Triple H put his career up for grabs in that match, but there were ways to kind of work around it and to have, not even put that step up for grabs in the first place. Just make it Triple H versus Brock Lesnar 2 and have Brock Lesnar go over again, but of course they didn't do that. So, yeah, I feel like WrestleMania 29 was as bad as some people believe it is. Was it the worst WrestleMania? No. I mean, I've seen worse. I've definitely seen worse WrestleManias in my time. Going back and watching them all on the WWE Network, again, cheap plug. I've been reviewing every WrestleMania here on the channel for the entire road to WrestleMania. But, yeah, there were far worse WrestleManias than WrestleMania 29. Just the only thing with it was that it just felt like they didn't give a shit, and the tagline was, we're not going to give you anything special on the show because we're going to save it for WrestleMania 30. And that's exactly what they did, in almost in retrospect, but almost exactly. But, yeah, I think WrestleMania 29 was as bad as some people believe it is because it was not a good show. Except for Taker and Punk, I think most of that show felt like an elongated episode of Raw. Is pretty much what it was. I said it then, I'll say it now. It felt like a 4-hour episode of Raw. Next question. Assuming they're still tag team champions, who would you like to see Tyson Kidd and Cesaro face at WrestleMania? Good question. Probably they're going to be doing a tag team turmoil matchup, if I would have to take a guess. So, yeah, I would put like primetime players in there, the Usos, of course. I don't want to see a straight-up match, a straight-up rematch between Usos and then Cesaro and Kid. They've already done that on Raw a couple times and at the pay-per-view. So include some other tag teams as well, like we saw last year with the 4-way. So do that. Those guys, the Usos, primetime players, the Ascension maybe. In a dream booking like fantasy world, I would do the Dudley Boys, have them reunite for like one last match at WrestleMania and do one more run with them. Not win the championships, but just to work with Cesaro and Kid would be a great match. I don't see that happening, but yeah, I would either do them versus the Dudley Boys or a multi-tag team matchup with the primetime players, with like I said, the Ascension, with the Usos, maybe a few other tag teams as well. But that's probably what I would do with the tag team titles at WrestleMania this year. Next question. Can you rank these wrestlers in terms of in-ring ability? Dean Ambrose, Cesaro, Tyson Kidd, Fandango, and Curtis Axel. So here's the interesting part about this question is that all these guys are great wrestlers. It's just that half of them have shitty-ass gimmicks. And that's kind of what it all really comes down to. Cesaro is my number one. And by the way, this is not incorporating... He said in terms of in-ring ability. This is not talking about charisma or, connection to the crowd and anything like that. This is talking about surely mat skills and stuff like that as a wrestler, not entertainer. So that's why you'll probably find this list a little bit controversial. But Cesaro, I put at number one. Kid at number two. I feel like he's one of the best wrestlers in WWE right now that they're finally doing something with, not like in a mid-card level, but as tag team champion, I'm cool with that. Cesaro, Kid, Curtis Axel, Fandango, then Dean Ambrose. The thing with Dean Ambrose, and I'm a huge Dean Ambrose fan. I consider him like one of my favorites right now with CM Punk gone. But the thing with Dean Ambrose is that he's an amazing talker, and he's a really good wrestler, but he's not a great wrestler, if that makes any sense. Like, he's a good brawler. Like, he reminds me of Stone Cold Steve Austin in that respect. After the next injury, after the next surgery, where he kind of had to change up his in-ring style as a brawler-like guy, and he still had amazing matches, of course, but he was not the same wrestler that he used to be, and I feel like Dean Ambrose kind of falls in that category. Axel and Fandango, not a fan of either guy. I think Axel is good. He has no charisma, but he's a great wrestler, and I think he's a better worker than Fandango. Again, a really good worker with a shitty-ass gimmick, and then Dean Ambrose is at the bottom there. I think he's the best entertainer out of all these guys. He's the most over out of all these guys for sure. But as a wrestler, I think it sounds a little harsh, but I think he's the worst of these five. I think the other guys are better wrestlers. That's a controversial list, a controversial ranking of those guys, but just the way I feel about it. Next question. What did you think of the feud between Wade Barrett and Randy Orton in 2011-2012? I thought it was very underrated. It was a good feud. I don't know about 2012. I don't know if you're talking about like their series of random matches at the end of 2012, but if you're talking about that feud that they had right before Survivor Series and Barrett beat him at Survivor Series, they had that good tables match, and Orton got taken out of commission for a couple weeks, and they blew the feud off on SmackDown like right after the Rumble and a no DQ match. After that, after Orton came back, the feud kind of jumped the shark a little bit, but from right before Survivor Series to TLC, that tables match, I thought it was also a very good feud. Not a great feud, but for what it was, I thought it was really nice and a good way to get Barrett back on track after kind of floundering for the most of 2011. Kind of got that Barrett barrage back on track in the final few months of the year with good wins over Randy Orton. So, yeah, I thought it was a good feud, much better than their feud in 2010, I'll say that much. I thought the feud in 2010, it wasn't bad, but the focus was all on John Cena and the Nexus. It was never about Barrett versus Orton. They had good matches, but the feud was never about Barrett and Orton. It was about John Cena. It was about the Nexus. It was about everything but Barrett and Orton. So, yeah, good stuff there. I enjoyed the feud in 2011. I thought their tables match at TLC was also very, very good. Next question. You talked about how much potential Luke Harper has last week. Do you think his look is holding him back? No, I don't think so. I think his look, the greasy shirt and the jeans and, the wife beater, everything about it. Everything about Luke Harper's image, I think, is unique, which is what people need to do more of. Because there's so many people on the current roster that don't have a distinct look and they feel so generic. Luke Harper, he's out there. It fits his gimmick. He's great in terms of his mannerisms in the ring. I think the look is great. With or without the look, I feel like he'll never be a world champion, but I think I don't think the look is holding him back. Like I said before, it's the booking of his character. I think he could be a very good mid-carder if they booked him that way. But ever since he dropped the IC title, they have yet to give two shits about him. So I don't know. I feel like his look is not the problem. It's more so the booking of the character. Because I think the look is very unique and kind of fits his character to perfection. At Ambrose 311, what are your thoughts on Rey Mysterio being released from the WWE? So Rey Mysterio, as of last week, for those of you that haven't heard, and if you haven't heard, then you're probably living under a rock. But he is officially gone from WWE. I mean, it was done very quietly. It wasn't like it was kind of like with CM Punk last year, where they moved his name to the alumni section, which was weird because Punk said he got fired in June, yet they didn't move his profile away from their website until like July. So that was a little weird. But maybe it was because his contract didn't expire. I don't know. I'm not really sure in June. But with Rey Mysterio, his contract did expire. They chose not to renew it, and now he's gone. He's been looking to get out from his contract for months now. I remember reading rumors like back in the summer saying that he was looking to get out of his contract with WWE, and I can't really blame him. He's injured beyond belief. There's really nothing more they could do with him. I mean, I'm a little disappointed to see him just gone randomly. Like, no statement from WWE at all. This is all just inference from... I mean, they did actually put out a statement. I don't know where it was, but they said WWE has chose not to renew the contract of Rey Mysterio. Oscar, whatever his name is. But they didn't put anything up on the website, like, no thank you, Ray, or anything like that. I didn't expect them to. But it would have been nice. I mean, the guy was with the company... He's not like a Kurt Hawkins or a Brodus Clay. The guy was with the company for 13 years, and he was an integral part of that era from from 02, from when he arrived in WWE, to 06, 07, from that time that he was world champion. One of the best merchandise sellers in WWE for that time, if not in history. So I felt like they should have done more with him on his way out. Like, I felt like they should have done one more match with him. I don't know what shape he's in right now, so maybe that would have been out of the question. But to have him come back, say goodbye, give him a proper farewell. With Punk, he walked out. With Rey Mysterio, there was still the option they could bring him back for one more appearance. But, it sucks, but it's just the way it is. I'm glad that, at least, like with Punk, at least he's going to be happy elsewhere. He's not, being held in prison, so to speak. He's not being imprisoned by the WWE, because I know he's been wanted out of his contract for a long time now, so I'm glad that he's finally happy he's gone, and he can do other stuff in AAA or in Lucha Underground, wherever. But, it's unfortunate. I feel like they should have done one more match with Rey Mysterio because, 2 days, last match in WWE was the match against Bad News Barrett the night after WrestleMania, where he lost in like 2-3 minutes and he got booed by the post-WrestleMania crowd. So, it's unfortunate, but, I'm glad that he's happy. He can do other stuff in other promotions, so I look forward to seeing him specifically in Lucha Underground. I think he could do a lot of awesome things over there as a wrestler, as a commentator, whatever. But, so hashtag thank you, Ray. Next question, kind of tying back into that. At Swagzio asks, what was Rey Mysterio's best match in WWE? Really good question, because it took me some time to think. And I'm thinking of, like, all the matches that he had, like, early on in his career, which was when his best matches were. 02, 03, like, he had a really, really good match, his pay-per-view debut against Kurt Angle at SummerSlam 02. Awesome match. The triple threat at WrestleMania, some people, I don't want to say it's overrated, but it could have been a lot better had it not been given 9 minutes. Like, that was Rey Mysterio's big win. It was a really good match. Rey Mysterio won his first World Heavyweight Championship on that night. But not only was it not the main event, but it got less than 10 minutes. Like, it was the length of a Divas match on pay-per-view. Like, it was ridiculous. So, I wouldn't call that his best match. And then he had a lot of other good matches during his time as well. In 05 with Eddie Guerrero, his match at WrestleMania 29 with him, I thought was fantastic. That whole series of matches that year in 05 were really, really good. I was trying to think of the matches that he had in 04. Part of the Cruiserweights with Chavo and a few others were really good. But if I really had to say, gun to head, what was Mysterio's best match in WWE, I'd probably have to say his match against Jericho, the Bash 2009 Intercontinental title match, Mask versus title, fantastic matchup, one of the best matches, if not, there's Taker and Shawn Michaels from that year, so easily number 2 from 2009. Jericho versus Mysterio, amazing matchup, and those two had a great feud of that Intercontinental title, probably the last time that title actually meant something for the most part, and I'd probably go back to that feud. I thought that was a great feud and a great match. I'd probably say that was Mysterio's best match in WWE. Maybe there's a few others that I'm forgetting. But my favorite Rey Mysterio match would probably have to be, I know this is random, and it's actually one of his final great matches in WWE. was the match against John Cena for the WWE Championship on that July 25th edition of Monday Night Raw. Maybe it's because I love that show so much. I thought that was an amazing Raw. But that match was really, really good. And it felt fresh because Cena and Mysterio hadn't worked together in like nearly 8 years or something like that. My apologies for the very abrupt jump cut there. We actually went past the hour mark. So once we hit the hour, it like cuts off immediately. So I apologize for that. But that's what happens when you guys send in so many awesome questions and I have to go past an hour. But at Swagzio, we're nearing the end here, I promise. But at Swagzio, next question. Will Eric Rowan ever be a top guy in WWE? I don't think so. I think he's good. He's never, ever going to be a top guy. I feel like they could be doing more with him. I mean, the guy was in the main event of Survivor Series, for Christ's sake. But, no, he's never going to be a top guy. At RJ_Marceau, if Daniel Bryan is added to the Intercontinental title match at WrestleMania, isn't it a lose-lose situation whether he wins or loses? So RJ himself was talking about this last week at WrestleRant Radio, and I completely agree with this, and I think it's a great theory. It's a great booking idea that if you give that championship to Daniel Bryan, or even another top guy, but Daniel Bryan in this case, I mean, we recorded that on Tuesday night, before the SmackDown spoilers, and then on Thursday, then on SmackDown, Daniel Bryan was inserting himself into the Intercontinental Championship picture. So the timing could not have been more perfect. But I feel like Daniel Bryan's Intercontinental Champion, it's not a lose-lose situation. It is if he loses. If he loses the IC title match at WrestleMania, I feel like it is a lose-lose in that case, because like I said earlier on in the video, it's a match that's beneath him at WrestleMania. If he loses that match, he's going to be made out to look like a loser. He's not gotten a big win since he came back, and his matches against Kane do not count. He lost at the Rumble, fair and square. He lost at Fastlane, fair and square. So he needs a big win. So I feel like that should come at WrestleMania in the form of this ladder match. Like I talked about before, and like who should win that matchup, Daniel Bryan makes the most sense because if you give him a nice long reign, it could help establish that belt as something meaningful again. As long as he doesn't, completely forget about it like Dean Ambrose did, or lose every other match that he's involved in, which I'm sure he wouldn't. But still, though, I feel like it would help out the Intercontinental title, and it would also help out Daniel Bryan to give him something to do for the time being. So I don't think it's a lose-lose. It is in the sense, I mean, I know if you're saying that Daniel Bryan should be in a more high-profile match at WrestleMania, I understand that, but that ship has sailed at this point. I feel like there's no other real opponents that you could have him work with at WrestleMania aside from Sheamus, but I would much, much, much rather have him in this matchup for the Intercontinental Championship than in a match with Sheamus, to be quite honest with you. I mean, I know that would give him the single spotlight, but it would be like second match on the show. No one would give a shit. And, I mean, at least on this match, which could very well kick off the show, and it should, at least in this match, more people are excited for it. And you can argue, why isn't he facing Dolph Ziggler one-on-one? Dolph Ziggler, in this case, would still not be getting his one-on-one match at WrestleMania, and it should happen eventually. But at least in this matchup, you're still getting Bryan versus Ziggler, just added in with all these other great workers in Barrett and Ambrose and a few others. So, no, I mean, I feel like if he wins the match, it could, really help him out, give him a nice run with that belt, make it mean something again. And if John Cena wins the U.S. title, God forbid, I hope it doesn't happen, but it's looking like it will. You could do Cena versus Bryan in the unification match for those both belts. Would be amazing. Don't expect it to happen. That's a really, 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 really long shot. But in theory, again, it would be great. Don't expect him to execute it in that fashion, but it would be a really interesting idea, though. But nevertheless, I feel like it is not a lose-lose situation. It is if he loses that match. But if he wins, it's okay, because I feel like it would give him something to do, like I said before, and it would help out the belt in the process if he gets a nice long reign with it. And someone else asked a question about that, and I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, I feel like he does have plans. I mean, putting him in the IC title match is a step up from a match with Sheamus at WrestleMania, because that feels like the only other match they would have with him at WrestleMania this year. At Chris Baker, PWP, his question is, do you believe that Randy Orton will spark another feud with Seth Rollins for WrestleMania, and if so, when exactly? Yeah, I mean, we've all been looking forward to this match for months now. I mean, Randy Orton's return has been delayed so much that I've been really looking forward to this Seth Rollins-Randy Orton match. They had a really good match on Raw right before Orton left in the fall. But, yeah, it's all but confirmed at this point. They're going to be facing each other at WrestleMania. Unless they switch up plans and have them do a tag team match or something dumb like that, which I'm sure they would not do, because the money is in Orton versus Rollins. And why they're doing the whole, still aligning with the authority thing, forgiving Seth Rollins for what he did and kind of tag teaming with him, attacking him, not attacking him, It's really weird. I'm not a fan of it. I know where they're going with this, but if this was going to be the case, they should have brought him back at the Rumble and then done this in the lead up to Fastlane and then have him turn on Rollins in the Fastlane tag team match. That 6-man, it could have been Orton, Rollins, and Kane instead of Big Show in there, or, take out Kane and put in Big Show, whatever. But you know what I mean. So that said, though, I do fully expect them to face each other at WrestleMania. And when will it happen, you ask? Hopefully in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully tonight or next week. They don't have much time until WrestleMania. And it's not like they can wait until the Raw before WrestleMania, because then their match will not be as hot at WrestleMania, in my opinion. They're still going to have a great matchup, but most of the build should be around Orton trying to get his hands on Seth Rollins, and then Seth Rollins doing that at, finally winning at WrestleMania or whatever, and having Orton finally getting his vengeance and having Rollins get his comeuppance at WrestleMania. So I feel like that should be the story being told going into their match on the grand stage. Next question, at Thomas_B96, his question was, how long do you give Roman Reigns to prove himself, especially if he wins the belt at WrestleMania? I don't want to say he's proven himself already, but his match with Daniel Bryan at Fastlane was a step in the right direction. His interview on SmackDown was also very good. His promo on Raw was also very good. It's not like he cut a pipe bomb promo. He went on for 20 minutes on a long tirade. No, I mean, his mic skills, his promos in recent weeks have been condensed. They're shortened down. They're short and sweet and to the point. That's exactly the way they should be with a babyface Roman Reigns. If they're not going to turn him heel anytime soon, that's what they need to do with Roman Reigns. Short, keep it brief, keep it intense, and that's the Roman Reigns that people are going to get behind, not John Cena 2.0 with this Jack and the Beanstalk bullshit. Like, that's stupid. Have him stay intense, stay serious, stay that cool guy in the room that doesn't really talk too much, and Roman Reigns would be, in a much better place than he is right now. He's on his way. He's better than he was a month ago, but still, though, I feel like I said before, he's not fully proven himself yet, but I feel like he's on his way to doing so if he keeps this up, kind of going into WrestleMania. So maybe at WrestleMania, maybe he proves himself there and has a great match with Brock Lesnar. I don't think he will. I don't think Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns could have that dynamic to have a really good match. But like I said, hopefully they prove me wrong and have a really good match, and Roman Reigns could prove himself in that environment. I feel like there's never going to be 100% people cheering for Roman Reigns. There's always going to be that fraction of people that will boo him. But if you put him with people that he could have a really good match with, like Daniel Bryan, then he could prove himself more. I thought the match with Daniel Bryan was very, very good. He didn't fully prove himself on that show, but like I said, it was a step it was a nice step in that right direction towards making him a solidified main event star. At Daniel Cabeza, 2 questions here. Number 1, do you think it would be a good idea to turn Daniel Bryan heel right now, now that he has lost a little bit of his popularity? No. I mean, like you said, he's lost a little bit of his popularity. Doesn't mean they need to panic and turn him heel. If it gets to the point where it's getting bad, where people just start to turn on him, then you can turn him heel, but he's still very much popular. Not as hot as he was when he came back. I blame that on WWE. But, yeah, I feel like there's really no need to turn him heel right now. Maybe down the line, and he's shown in the past that he can work really well as a heel. We saw that in late 2011, early 2012. But, right now, anyway, there's really no reason to turn him heel. Maybe after WrestleMania, like I said, if people start to turn on him, I don't expect that to happen. But just because he's not as hot as he was a month ago, you don't need to turn him heel ASAP. His second question, what did you think about the lack of plan for Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania? Because there's a big chance he'll be facing Sheamus. Like I said, it looks like right now the plan is for him to be in the Intercontinental title match. Unless that was a red herring and they want us to think that, it feels like right now he will be in that ladder match at WrestleMania. And he should be. I'd much rather get that match than a match with Sheamus. I don't know what you do with Sheamus. I don't know if you put him in the Battle Royal. I mean, you could, but the only issue with that is that they've been promoting his return so much in these vignettes. Only to have him return in the Battle Royal and not win feels such like a waste of time to me. So maybe I'm not completely ruling out that they do Bryan and Sheamus. I mean, there's a chance tonight they kickstart that feud going into WrestleMania, and then the stuff with the IC title was just a red herring, or they put Sheamus in that title match too. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. But the lack of long-term plan for Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania does bother me. I do agree with that. They should not have booked him the way they did at the Royal Rumble. Like, why bother having him come back at all right before the Royal Rumble if they were going to throw him out so early and they're going to have Roman Reigns win and have the whole building shitting on that matchup? There was no purpose to that, and I agree. And they really had no plans for him set in stone for WrestleMania, aside from maybe a match with Sheamus. But still, though, I feel that is bothersome to me. But to kind of correct you there, it looks like he might be on a title match for the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania instead of a match with Sheamus, which I'm hoping is the case, because I would much rather get him in that ladder match as opposed to a third WrestleMania match with Sheamus. It feels so unnecessary and a waste of time. And final question here at the Average Grunt from the Twitter. This question was, if Daniel Bryan wins the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania, do you think there's a chance that he could break the Honky Tonk Man's record for the longest reigning record as Intercontinental Champion? Probably not. I mean, I don't want to say it's like not something to expect this day and age, because CM Punk as WWE Champion reigned for 434 days for well over a year. So I'm not going to say this day and age it's impossible. But I mean, there's a chance, and it would be really cool if that was the case, and whoever beat him for that belt would be over as a motherfucker. Like, that would be great. Again, don't expect that to happen. But is there a chance? Very, very slight. I mean, they don't treat that belt as well as they should have. I mean, I shit on that belt all the time because it doesn't mean anything, and it's not the champion's fault. It's the way they book the champions in the championship itself. But the thing with the Intercontinental Championship is that they're so hot and cold with it, they'll pretend to make it mean something for a week or two, and then they'll go back to treating it like absolute shit. So that's why I feel like a consistent reign for Daniel Bryan as champion would not work out, because I feel like, yeah, we're going to give Daniel Bryan this nice long reign as champion, and then like a month or so later they're thinking, we've changed our minds, we want to give the belt to so-and-so. And then it means nothing because they lose every single one of their matches. You know what I mean? So they're so inconsistent with that championship that I don't see that happening, but there is a slight chance of it happening, and it would be great if there's anyone to break that record from the Honky Tonk Man as the longest reigning champion, the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion in WWE history. It's Daniel Bryan. I think that'd be amazing. But yeah, that wraps up this week's edition of #AskGSM. As always, guys, thank you for sending in the questions. It means a lot to me. But if you want to send in a question, you can tweet me on the Twitter at WrestleRant with #AskGSM. But if you have a question that is beyond 140 characters, you can find me on Facebook at Graham Jason Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I'll usually put up on Sunday nights, or you can leave a comment on the wall, and I'll be sure to include it in next week's video, as well as the comment section on this very video, folks. It's that easy. Just scroll right down after liking and subscribing and sharing, all that great stuff. Make sure to leave a comment, and I'll be sure to answer your question in next week's #AskGSM edition number 69. Yeah, very interesting edition of #AskGSM next week. Number 69. It's going to be a great time, though, so very much looking forward to that. But in the meantime, and in between time, folks, have a great week, and I'll catch you next Monday.